Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to this presentation, labeled Creatively Through ChatGPT from Chaos to Control, Transforming Software Management with Chocolatey for Business. My name is Ryan Richter. Most of my internet handles, you can find me at RyanRichter94 online. You've probably seen this 5 million times already throughout the presentation, but thank you to our sponsors for the amazing food, the amazing venue, putting the whole entire event together. We truly can't do it without their support, so thanks. A little bit about myself. I am a senior support engineer for Chocolatey Software. I've been working there for a little under 4 years. I have about 6 to 8 years of PowerShell experience. I'll be honest, I can't exactly remember when I started using it. And then again, here are all my social media handles. So to start off a little bit, what is Chocolatey? At the core root of it, we are a package manager. The big difference I want to make is we are a package manager. We are not a software manager. And I say that to kind of not limit the use case of the tool that is Chocolatey. We truly manage the packages that can deploy software, but at the end of the day, we can do a lot more than software management. Really, we're calling PowerShell inside of a Chocolatey process. So that can be anything, effectively. PowerShell is kind of that unified framework to administer Windows. So if you need to do any kind of register key updates or, starting, stopping services, doing any deletion of files, addition of files, anything like that outside of even your software management, you can do that with a Chocolatey process. Digging a little deeper under the hood, it is built on top of the NuGet CLI client. For those of you that don't know, NuGet is a framework developed by Microsoft that is open source. Kind of the running story that I tell people is kind of how did Chocolatey get its name? Our founder, Rob Reynolds, was working with the NuGet team a little bit at the time, where basically they're like, hey, NuGet CLI is great for C# and .NET libraries and things like that. Why couldn't we do, basic third-party kind of software management and things like that with it? To which one of his cohorts basically replied, well, it wouldn't be a vanilla or classic NuGet package at that point. And since that's kind of how he came up with the name Chocolatey, to my understanding. Lastly, because we've done this every year that anybody's done a presentation since Rob originally presented this at Puppet way back in the day, Chocolatey is magic. Also, hopefully you appreciate that's half of the slide deck right there. I like to just cut to the chase and honestly just go to a VM and kind of show off what is Chocolatey and what are we going to do with it. So if we just cut over to a Windows VM, in this case, just because we can play a little bit with this, it is a Server 2022 box. So yeah, there's no winget here. So if we open up an administrative Windows PowerShell session, here we can quickly run Choco to see that it's installed, what version we have, everything like that. I do have a trial license on there, so apologies for the warning about how long my trial license is for. So let's look a little bit at truly what a package looks like. So inside of this folder, I've got tons and tons and tons of Chocolatey packages inside of here. But basically, if we look at, let's see here, let's pick a good one kind of thing. Any Chocolatey package will be labeled .nupkg. Now, there's a few ways to pronounce this file extension. Depending how long you've been at the conference, you'll call it nupkeg. Otherwise, you might call it a new package. And all the shaking has begun. Effectively, what that file format is really just a fancy zip. So if you use something like 7-zip or what have you, you can simply extract the files into a folder and truly kind of look at what a package consists of. So if we go into this folder, effectively we have a .newspec file. Basically, this is a fancy XML file with all the metadata of a package. So if we open VS Code here, basically we can find your ID, version, title, author information, as well as any kind of markdown description of it, links to licensing URLs, project URLs, as well as any helpful descriptors that you have for any kind of packaging that you're doing. The other part that makes up a Chocolatey package is pretty well your tools directory as a standard for us. Underneath that, usually you'll have your binary that you want to execute, as well as a either Chocolatey install script. We also have a before modify and script uninstall scripts. Basically, the differences between those is if you're running an install of a package, it will reference the install. If you have before modify, that will run before an upgrade of a package, and obviously uninstall. With the business product, we have what's considered an auto uninstaller inside of it. Basically, we're kind of taking a little bit of a snapshot of what happened on the system to try and help uninstall it. Otherwise, you can manually say, hey, I might need to do some cleanup of some files or whatnot, have me in a separate PowerShell script before I actually execute the binary and actually uninstall that software or what have you. If we take a look at a Chocolatey install, which thinking about this, the actual Chocolatey package might not be the best example. Inside of here, we do call a couple, basically inside of Chocolatey, we have a couple of helper functions to help install software. In fact, I won't use Chocolatey for this. Most of our stuff, basically, the code inside of it consists of a big long parameter block where you're passing your silent arguments, where your executable is and everything like that. And then most of the time we're using either an install Chocolatey install package to call that binary. We can also do that with certain zip files, ISOs. Basically, Chocolatey will kind of integrate with whatever file you're doing, EXEs, MSIs, MSUs, MSP files. We've seen it, we've done it all. Throughout the 13 years, we've kind of been, as a tool, doing that. So that hopefully explains a little bit what a package actually is. So going back to kind of how do you interact with packages a little bit. Basically, you have your basic Chocolatey commands. So in our case, if you've seen a couple of us actually running around with t-shirts that have all of our commands listed on them, basically, it works like any other package manager. You have your install, upgrade, uninstall commands. Inside of that, we also have our local Chocolatey configuration that you can edit via the CLI and a lot of other things under the hood as well. As well as interacting with sources, syncing up packages from packages and programs, the idea of API keys with remote sources. One that I often use is the Choco outdated command. Effectively, what that is doing is if I run that, it will look at my remote sources and say, hey, what packages do I have locally installed, as well as what versions can I look upstream to say, hey, inside of my repository, if I'm looking at an online feed, what versions do I have available? Do they have any upgrades? As well as, hey, are these pinned by any chance? Chocolatey does have the concept of pinning to a version or version range with your packages. A lot of developers use that with Python. I know there's a huge difference between Python 2 and Python 3, as well as anybody working in the Java kind of area. The version numbers do make quite a bit of difference on your versions of Java that you run inside of that. let me think here. A couple other ones that are nice to note is Chocolist will list out your locally installed packages on the system. In this case, I have 34 of them. A nice helpful kind of switch or option on the command is the -I. I believe it is include programs is the long name for this option. Basically, you'll get that same list of locally installed packages, as well as we'll actually grep inside of Windows and say what is installed in the system but not managed under a Chocolatey package. Going back to kind of we're a package manager and not a software manager, this is really where you can see, hey, we have software in a system that isn't being managed by Chocolatey per se. We have quite a nice little workaround around that with the business features of Chocolatey. You can run a Choco sync command. Basically, it'll look through AppWiz, look at the naming convention used for that, and create an on-the-fly package based on the files that we can see on the system to try and make a Chocolatey package from them. So at that point, you might be asking, well, how do I get packages and how do I create packages with this kind of a tool? So in that case, I'm actually going to go out to one of our resources here, our community repository. So if you're a little bit lazy and you want to use the open source community that we have here at Chocolatey, you can use our community repository. Currently, we have just 10.3 thousand unique packages for software, the largest Windows store, and we're quickly approaching 3 billion with a B installs of packages on our feed. One of the really nice things that our web dev here did recently is on the searching index for our community feed, we have a really nice feature. I forget the name of it. If one of you, script builder. So you can kind of go through our community repository like a store with this little add button here, come over to the builder, and at this point it would say, hey, I want the Adobe Reader DC package. From there, we can go ahead and generate a script. We can pick our installation or integration method. At this point, I will say we integrate with just about every one of the big configuration management platforms out there. There are more that aren't even listed on here that we do integrate with. So in this case, we'll just go with generic because I do have an instance up. I could specify my internal repository where I want to host that package and put that within here. So conveniently, mine is here. We also helpfully go inside of here and recommend if you don't have an environment set up currently, we link back to our documentation, our organizational deployment guide to say, hey, how do you set up a repository? How do you get Chocolatey up on a server? As well as lots of other helpful tips. We have the same thing for if you want to use Chocolatey with Ansible, Puppet, PowerShell DSC, Chef, all of them right within there. And then lastly, we go ahead and give you your install script for the package inside of here, as well as the actual package code within it as well. So in this case, you can see technically a longer version of the command to do that as well. So that's a really helpful tool on here. So that's kind of using community packages from our feed. I will say with our community feed, it is rate limited inside of it. So we recommend with it, obviously, because of software distribution rates, inside of our public packages, we have URL references to the software maintainers for your Google Chromes, Adobe Readers, and so forth within it. One of the nice parts of the business product is on our download command, we have an option called internalize. to go into that a little bit here, and hopefully the conference Wi-Fi plays nicely at this point. I will go ahead and do a Choco download of Google Chrome, if I could type, with the internalize flag. Basically what package internalizer is doing is we'll pull down the package from the specified feed that you want. We'll look inside of the Chocolatey install script with a little bit of regex, basically looking at the URL references, then rewrite that script once we've downloaded the binary to reference it and just dot source it into the actual package, then recompile that package to make it completely offline. That way you're not hitting our community repository, as well as you're not hitting Google or Adobe or wherever that software is hosted. At that point, it's more of a great security practice from your end to say, hey, I'm internally hosting my applications. I don't have to go back out to the internet. If our feed were to go down for whatever reason, you're not reliant on that as well. Conference Wi-Fi, gotta love it. Also, yeah, go ahead.
Just a question about the versions of the packages on the community side.
Mm-hmm.
Is the community responsible for updating new versions, or is there some kind of magic happening?
Yeah, a lot of them have automation set up to where basically they're looking out to the publisher's website to say, hey, when a new version becomes active, usually they'll have either a GitHub action or something on their on the maintainer side to say, hey, go ahead, pull that in, run it through my cycle, and then bring it to our feed for approval. At that point, it does go through a moderation process through us of automated scan testing. We also go through and scan everything with VirusTotal against 70 to 80 different AV clients on it. And then we have the concept of what is a trusted package. I believe it's the first 3 or 5 times that you submit a package, a human moderator will actually go through, look at the package, make sure it's not malicious, and have to approve it. And then once you've done that 3 to 5 times, it becomes trusted. So we take the human factor out of that, but it's still being scanned and going through automated testing before we publish it.
So like the example of Adobe, Adobe themselves uploads
Usually it is somebody on our community. Yeah, it's we prefer it be the software manufacturer. However, a lot of it is actually just regular folks out in the community because it is an open source feed. Anybody can truly put, bring to us whatever they want inside of it, and then that moderation process is kind of really truing it up, making sure what we put out there is a safe to consume binary. I say that a lot of organizations can't use our community repository, as well as we kind of don't advocate for our business customers to use it as much with it. We recommend that you go through and create your own packages. So what, kind of going into what does that process look like inside of here. So if I quickly go to my downloads folder, I've got a couple commonly used applications, Notepad++, VLC, whatnot have us here. With Chocolatey for Business, we do offer a full-fledged GUI to help with package creation. We call it Package Builder. Basically, you can source in your binary file here. You can also tell it where you want to output it, pass any silent arguments that you might know of for the package. Usually, for EXEs, MSIs, that might be -s, -qn, what have you inside of there. As well as you can choose to put in the additional scripting that you would like if you need a before modifier and uninstall script with it as well. On the next tab over, we have basically filling out that new spec file I showed you earlier with the metadata. That's your ID, version, title, author, description, everything within there. The mandatory fields inside of here are just ID, version, and title. Everything else is an optional thing within here. The nice part with Chocolatey for Business is you can go through and fill all of this out, and then down at the bottom, you can generate the package. What I usually like to do with it is we also have basically let Chocolatey do a lookup of the installer, try and grep out from the installer file itself, that version, title, author, everything like that, and kind of create that package for you. So in this case, and for VLC, it's actually very helpful inside of here. So it was able to successfully generate a package. However, it's telling me that it couldn't actually grep the version of it to create that full file. So to do that, I can just come down into the VLC, go into our new spec, come down to the version part of this, update our file. Also within the package that gets created, our automation will create a to-do file for whatever it's missing or suggestions through the automation part of that. So in this case, it does tell us, hey, we couldn't find the version or anything like that. If it can't grep any mandatory information, it'll let you know inside of here. Then one nice thing is with our extension, you can also just right click on that new spec file and say, hey, compile the Chocolatey package off of that. In the background, that's really just running a choco pack command against your new spec to generate your NUPKG or package file. So that's one way to create a package. A lot of us are going to be going to the manufacturer themselves, kind of thing. So let me see here. If I go to 7-zip, and I click on the link address here for the download, I can also pipe that in to the Choco new command with URL. Hopefully that plays nice. Probably need to quote it. Ah, yes. There we go. And then from that, it will source it from the software manufacturer itself, run it through the same process, and generate that package for you. The other thing is you can specify a file with that as well from the command line. Let's see here. So that is package creation. I would like to talk about one of our integrations at this point. So once you do have that Chocolatey package, a lot of people these days are using Intune. We do integrate with their product a little bit. Basically what the integration here with our Choco convert command is doing is it will attempt to run the Intune app util over the Chocolatey package. It will look at the metadata, basically export out another XML file that basically helps fill in the GUI interface of Intune, the 12 steps to define kind of what a software app looks like on their end, as well as it'll convert the actual package into the Intune Win format that you know today. And then at that point, you have the Intune Win file. With Chocolatey packages from there, obviously, we do have another GUI interface here called Package Uploader. So you can upload or push that package to a NuGet repository. We do integrate with basically anything that will run a NuGet v2 or v3 endpoint, as well as we can actually add in with our integration and a little bit of setting up an app registration inside of Graph, we can push it to your Intune tenant as well for the Intune package inside of that. So basically, let me launch that real quick just to kind of show it off. Basically, you just source your file in. Inside of here, I have a Nexus repository with a v3 feed or index.json at the end of it, as well as this is my horribly named GUID for my Intune tenant, because yeah. So that is kind of creating packages, pushing them around a little bit with it. Some of the ways to ingest packages. So as you know, you can do the CLI commands to install, upgrade, uninstall packages, and so forth. We do also have a GUI interface. This kind of mirrors the Intune company portal a little bit and things like that. Inside of here, you can see what packages are locally installed on the computer and this PC source, as well as we can query something like the Chocolatey community feed for the different packages on it as well. Going back to this PC, I've got a couple different examples of, we will show you if we can source a newer version, we'll have this outdated. Inside of it, basically you can choose to upgrade. You can also reinstall or uninstall the program. These are permissions that you can set for your users to either add or deny running those commands through the GUI interface. The other thing here with this little pin is obviously back hearkening to the pin command, you can pin it to a version or version range. That's why specifically this isn't showing out of date. There is a version 17 and 18 I know of this specific ASP.NET Core package. As well, when you drill into any of the packages here, so let's find, we'll do Microsoft Edge. Drilling in, you'll get your markdown description that you defined within the new spec of the file, as well as release notes or anything like that that you have. Also, if you're looking at the community repository, it does have kind of the download metrics and everything from the metadata of that package as well. I will say with the business part of the product, this is very customizable to work in an environment. I have a little bit of a script example here. Let me find that real quick. Basically what this block of code is going to do is install our business extension on top of the Chocolatey GUI. I'm going to go ahead and install a branding package for kind of a made-up company. I'll go ahead and hide this PC source. A lot of end users don't really care what's on my machine. They just want to see, hey, what can I install on it? As well as if you have multiple sources, we can aggregate that down to just one all sources button, default it to going to looking straight at that in the interface. And then through this, I'm actually going to, because it's running in our background service that I'll touch on a little bit, and I am an admin, I kind of have to do this to show what the non-admin view would look like a little bit in the interface. And thankfully, I pre-cached all of these packages in a local file directory. You can work with Chocolatey in a Windows file system. We really don't advocate for it because it is very slow compared to actually querying a NuGet feed. Computers read JSON a lot better than they do a Windows file share, which has lovely NTFS permissions that you have to manage. Please use a repository manager. They have their own access rights inside of the tool, which makes it 100 times easier to manage on that. So I'll go ahead and call our Chocolatey GUI interface here to launch it. You can see we've custom made the splash screen that presents, as well as just basically having our one source on the machine that queries a lot of other sources and brings it all into one effectively. That way you can kind of really tailor the UX of the interface for a lot of users. They don't want to have to go through and click a lot of things to get their software at the end of the day. If you can say, hey, here's your app library, here's your approved software from us to install, you know, at that point, you're fine probably letting them install common applications like web browsers or PDF readers, things like that. Inside of your sourcing, you can get more to script to say, and create further repositories to say, hey, marketing team gets this, development team, you know, gets your VS codes and DLL libraries and things like that as well. All right, so that's a little bit on the GUI interface of Chocolatey here. Now, let's see. This is really where we're going to start talking about Chocolatey for business. So we do offer a couple ways of setting up what we kind of recommend as a Chocolatey environment here. So we offer basically a quick start guide implementation. What this will do is it will install Chocolatey, the business product, our deployment and reporting interface, Chocolatey Central Management. We'll go ahead and install open source Sonatype Nexus Repository Manager, and to give you a little bit of automation engine, we'll install Lovely Jenkins. The nice part with this is as long as you show up with a Windows 2019 or newer server with 4 CPU cores, 16 gigs of RAM, and a little bit of hard drive space, basically you run, copy and paste 5 PowerShell scripts to go through and set up all of that infrastructure. We've taken care of the hard code for you. Literally, you just have to run the PowerShell. I do not mind if that is an EC2 instance, if that is some kind of Windows environment in a Docker container, or on Hyper-V VMware, insert hypervisor here. We used to do it where we provided a hypervisor version. All of us wanted to pull our hair out of our head, running that through Packer, that lovely product. So we basically extrapolated all of that, put it in PowerShell and said, here, just bring us Windows. We'll kind of configure your environment for you. We know that the cloud is a thing these days as well. So on the Azure side, we do have an Azure Marketplace image that basically will stand up the exact same thing that I mentioned earlier with the repository solution, CI/CD pipeline, and our configuration management platform a little bit. Inside of kind of best practice, we'll set up a SQL backend inside of Azure for you. We'll stand up a VM. We'll run everything through an app gateway, kind of best practice through Azure. We do have additional information on our docs about kind of what the average cost of that is, because obviously with cloud providers, there is a cost. With it, we're looking at doing it in the Amazon ecosystem. It's been a little bit harder to crack into that than the Microsoft ecosystem, believe it or not. But it is something we're doing. The quick start guide is kind of our solution for that. Again, bring us any Windows environment. That can be EC2, or if you're mad enough running it on GCP, we can do it. So basically, after you've deployed that, you kind of have 3 web management platforms to help kind of manage Chocolatey. And this is really where the automation comes in of using the different tooling that we've talked about so far. So inside of here, our Jenkins piece of this, we go ahead, all this is really doing is running a few PowerShell scripts. We're just providing parameterized input to them. Inside of here, we give you 3 pre-configured jobs. Basically, we want to download with internalize for community packages off of our feed. If you go in here, literally the only, it is set too long. Let me re-auth real quick. Basically, you're just presented with a package list parameter here. Put in the names of the packages you want to internalize. Through the process, we'll run that download, internalize on the back end as a job. Inside of our Nexus instance, we have a test repository and a production repository. I know a lovely thing these days. You actually get test and prod, two things. So basically what that will do is the first job will push everything into your test repository. We have a separate dedicated one. That way with automation, you can say, hey, once it's in test, go ahead and put it in prod, or you can kind of manually click the button once you've done maybe some additional validation testing that you might write or do on a certain package. Lastly, kind of the really nice things that our customers like within this is the last job in here. Because of Jenkins scheduling, basically this is doing a diff of what have you defined in your test repo from the first job, what's up in our community repository. You can check at your leisure, daily, weekly, what have you, for updates of those packages. Back to your question a little bit, once we have automation on the front end kind of bringing in those new package versions, usually within a day or two of it being published, we have it on our feed. Usually we have it quicker than the 9nights and everybody else of the world, actually. So with that, you can kind of keep continuously streaming your non-business essential kind of applications, your Adobe Readers and Google Chromes and Putty and what have you in your organization. We give you kind of a best-in-class repository manager with Sonatype Nexus here. We do use the open source version. I will say they do have a paid-for product if you need more functionality. Most people don't unless you're getting to a scale where you need replication across different geographic locations and what have you, and hosting multiple instances. Otherwise, most people are fine with the open source version of this product. Basically what we're doing inside of here is we're hosting up 2 NuGet feeds inside of the tool. One of the things I do harp on a little bit is I feel every organization should have some kind of repository manager, because while we at Chocolatey just use NuGet feeds, tools like this can go through and you can use apt, yum, bower, go, maven, npm, insert package format here for it, as well as usually a lot of them are doing Docker registries, which is kind of the hot thing right now. So basically, that's package storage at that point. Back where we offer kind of the service here a little bit is with Chocolatey Central Management. With our business client, we do offer a agent that you can install on your machine. Basically, what that agent is doing in the background is it's running that Choco outdated command on a regular cadence, as well as the Choco list to say what's locally installed on your machines. We're reporting that back to a database backend on the server here, and then this is just a web interface to query that database effectively. It is user configurable how often you do have that check-in for this, as well as it is a deployment interface as well. So with the information that you have on what's installed locally, what's out of date, you can take action with that on a cadence to say, hey, go ahead and push out that upgrade or that uninstall if it doesn't need to be there, kind of thing. Go over the interface a little bit on here. We have the computers tab. Once you install the agent and configure it correctly to check into this interface, it'll show up here. Diving into a computer entry a little bit, we have kind of its group associations, as well as, again, what's locally installed, as well as from that outdated query locally on that machine with its sources configured, what is considered out of date, or I know I can get a newer version of it that's been locally configured. From that, we do group-based deployments, so we go ahead and create groupings of our machines inside of here. Lastly, we go through and scaffold a deployment. This has a couple kind of working features, so we'll go over it really quickly here. We can go through and create a deployment name here, so I'll just do my normal test deployment, show it off. We have the concept of step deployments, so effectively you can come in here, give it a step. We might want to be installing Chrome or something like that. We have the concept of a basic step and an advanced deployment step. With the basic step, you can kind of do the core 3 Chocolatey operations: install, upgrade, uninstall package. In this case, we would want to install it. We give it the name of our package that we want. You can specify a package version inside of here. If you leave this blank, we will go ahead and source the latest, or go with the latest that the machine can source version of that package to upgrade or install or uninstall, kind of thing. Because we are working on NuGet v3, it uses Semver v2, so alpha, beta, pre-release packages. Otherwise, GA. Then from that, you just select your group that you would like to deploy to, save off your step. Inside of here, obviously you have deleting, go back to edit. We have a duplication button in here, so if you've gone through and defined a big step or what have you, we can go ahead and go through and look at that. I'll go ahead and edit the second one here, kind of show you what advanced steps really look like. So with an advanced deployment, we're opening a PowerShell session through our agent on that machine, effectively. So it's a PowerShell prompt. Do whatever PowerShell you need to remotely execute against your machines. It is usually in an admin context, so know about that. Be a little safe with it. One nice thing that we recently added here is sensitive variables. Kind of works like a password store a little bit. Because we're scripting, we call it a variable. Inherently, name, value inside of there. And then once you define it, super secret things. You can be writing your code, what have you. If you need to pass password or whatnot, you can drop it in from here. The nice part about using this functionality is downstream, Chocolatey will not clear text, output that in your logs. Inside of it, it'll basically say, hey, you used the sensitive variable, we're not gonna log that part. It'll let you know you did it, but that's as far as it's gonna go. And then inside of here, we just give you a couple helpful tips. Kind of with PowerShell, error action preference is your friend. Please put it to stop. You can use throw statements for that kind of engagement. And then everything with our deployment mechanism is based on the last exit code of that PowerShell session. That's driving your success or failure. Inside of advanced filters a little bit, you can get down to the second in terms of how long that session is open. You can define the valid exit codes and add to them. We have the concept of a machine timeout in here. Effectively, what this interface is doing is queuing all of your deployments. So at that point, if you set it and you get, and we cannot contact the machine in the specified amount of minutes, you'll basically get an unreachable status saying, hey, the machine was offline when you tried to patch it or what have you. Pretty much the standard bells and whistles with any deployment mechanism. You can specify a start time, you can restrict it to a maintenance window, do an end time with it, as well as we have deployment recurrence, so you can run it on a daily, weekly, bi-weekly schedule kind of thing. Really with the full kind of suite of things here. With Jenkins bringing in the packages on the frequency that you specify if you're using community packages, that part's automated. You're storing it internally in an offline version, security's happy. With central management, you can deploy everything on a weekly schedule or daily schedule. You've automated third-party patch management at that point, kind of thing. Like your Google Chromes, Adobe Readers, everything like that. It's taken care of. You just have to generate the reports, tell some lowly help desk guy what to do, and he'll go and do it. One last thing I do want to specify in here a little bit. All of this, with the modern age, you've probably been to an API talk at the conference. All of this is driven by a .NET API on the back end. We're nice. We put a Swagger doc there to document it because we know you want to play with it. And then that is most of my talk. I can run through all of the rest in a little bit. Kind of just want to talk real quickly about some of the tools that we do integrate with in the kind of a marketplace setting. Sonatype Nexus, as you saw, they have an open source and paid for product. Anito ProGet is another one that has open source as well as paid for versions. Kind of the Cadillac option a lot of organizations are using. JFrog Artifactory comes with a big cost, I'll be honest. If you're looking for cloud native solution, Cloudsmith is out there. It's really, really nice. Configuration managers, like I spoke about earlier. We integrate with Ansible, Puppet, Chef, PowerShell DSC, SaltStack. There are a few more. They're very niche. I haven't seen a lot of people use them. CI/CD platforms. Obviously, you saw us give you an open source Jenkins. Anything that can basically execute a PowerShell script on a licensed Chocolatey box, you can run that process with. So you can put it inside of a GitHub action, GitLab runner, Azure DevOps pipeline. I've seen people do Circle CI as well, or other tools like that. Lastly here, a couple helpful resources. This is our open source installer, link to our docs page. We do have a community Discord, so if you're looking to get started with the product, we've got a thriving community on there about maintaining packages on the community repository, what have you. All the discourse is usually done there. And then if you're interested in the business product that we showed off today, that is our sales contact URL as well. And that's the presentation. So thank you for listening.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Like, are there other things that Chocolate is not good at, like that you might see customers try out?
One big thing that we've seen is some people will come to us thinking that you can package Microsoft updates. However, it's not the nicest experience with our tool. It's not at this point kind of a solution to, or a replacement for like WSUS or other kind of platforms doing that. We're looking into that space though, I will tell you that.
Yeah. What about things like SQL Server, something like that, something like bigger that people install regularly? Like, would that be a good thing to use Chocolate for?
Yeah. We see often with SQL Server, actually part of our deployment when we do the back end of central management, the database part of it, we use SQL Server Express. We're just pulling the community package for that and installing it as part of it. Obviously, you can use full licensed SQL. There's all the different kind of database platforms like your MongoDB and everything are on there.
Would it be possible to like configure clusters and stuff like that? SQL sometimes available clusters.
Yep, absolutely. It's just arguments that you can pass to the installer when you configure it. Or again, the lovely part of SQL is you can do all of it with PowerShell as well. Yep. I should say kind of with that, I didn't touch on this a little bit. Chocolatey packages, again, they don't even need to really reference software per se. A Chocolatey package can just be a PowerShell script kind of thing. And it can be extensible with extensions to include modules and things like that as well. Yeah. Yep. Any other questions?
How do you get like logs from the machine back to your central business stack?
Mm-hmm. So our agent is basically exporting that out as a XML file. It's going over a secure HTTPS traffic to the server, and then we have a local service that is basically writing that in a database query into the database on that. It's all agent driven actually, so there is no upstream from like our central management product. There's nothing coming down. It's all agent driven actually on the endpoint.
Like the output from the custom scripts and the output of the installation gets sent up?
Yes. Let me see here. Oh, James, you can butt in. Yes, that is one thing I did want to show. So thank you. I did run a quick test deployment just kind of the Microsoft Edge package here. If we drill down into the install step here, we get back the full agent log and Chocolatey executable log for the operation that you're looking to run inside of that and give it back in the deployment interface here kind of thing. So unlike I can say this, it's not recorded, I don't think. Unlike Intune with its encrypted logs and things like that, we actually give it back to you in the kind of the one pane of glass. That way you're not remoting to other machines to have to figure out, hey, what went wrong with my deployment? Do I have a reboot, a 1618, 3010, something like that happen within it? It's all within the logs and generated back up to the management platform. So. We've also seen a couple of our business customers actually shipping off those logs to not only central management, but something like Splunk and things like that to also kind of help with reliability of the agent service and things like that as well, to kind of self-heal, if you will, the process when something does go wrong.
That connection would happen on the server?
Yes, everything is based off of a HTTPS connection from the server to the client. And that can be, there is no online requirement for the product. It can work in a completely air-gapped network as well, kind of thing. The only part of that is like the Jenkins and community repository, obviously that's an online feed. At that point, you'd be creating your own packages and either sneaker netting them in or something like that, or downloading them and bring them into your environment, then creating the package. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, last one is,
Mm-hmm.
do you had that create Intune package. Do you see, if you have Intune already available, is there, because there's a lot of crossover, is there any reason to try and leverage Intune as well for deploying packages, would you say, just exists?
I would recommend using Chocolatey Central Management because it's a lot more configurable. In my experience with Intune, you can set everything up, and at that point, it's kind of like group policy. It'll run when it wants to run, hopefully inside of a window. With this, I can get down to the minute of when I'm getting that information back to my server. It's all configurable down to that minute level to say, hey, if I have a problem, I can set the tolerances so low that within a few minutes, I will know if something has gone wrong or not and get, again, that full logging within it. Yeah, we do offer basically that as a service to a lot of people are saying, hey, we like Intune for kind of the autopilot process, things like that. Really, the aim for the integration is to kind of use Chocolatey as that unified framework for the package format. And then basically we're just calling Chocolatey in that process to install it, but you're still using Intune as more of that deployment mechanism to really get it there.
I was going to say, you kind of touched on it, but like, I know with Intune, like Microsoft says, the devices generally check in every 8 hours, or it can be a cloud minute.
Mm-hmm.
But how often can you set Chocolatey for the devices to check into the management point?
It is configurable down to the second of how often you want it to happen.
And like, what do you guys recommend in setting that?
The defaults are, so we have two different check-in variables. Basically, every 3 minutes, the agent is checking for a new deployment task that's queued up in the mechanism of central management. And then every 30 minutes, it's running that full list and outdated process and sending over that data. It's kind of our defaults. With larger organizations, obviously, they kind of back that down to their requirements of, hey, we might need, every hour, we might do it instead of every half hour or something like that. Yeah.
Where can I access that? Swagger Doc Pro?
You can access it directly from the central management interface here. We have a link to it for the instance, as well as on our documentation. If I go under central management here, and I believe it is usage, we fully document the API and all the endpoints inside of our.
Centralized
Yeah.
instance, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can only get into the actual Swagger Doc.
Yeah, it's because it's actually authing in as your logged in self to, if you do the tryout inside of Swagger, it'll execute in that user context. Yeah. I will tell you that most of the time with the business product, we do trial it out for You get a 4-week trial with it, and we do offer an implementation service. I'm usually one of the guys running that. Basically, we get on a 2-hour Zoom call. We deploy the needed solution in about an hour, and then I go through kind of a use case, kind of like you showed today with the different interfaces that we offer and kind of how that process runs, as well as answer any questions that you would have with the product. But we're happy to have those conversations with you if you're interested in it. As well, we're happy if you're just using the open source product really too. All right, that is all I have. So thank you guys.